Hello BookTube. Today I'm going to be doing the Stand with Trans Kids book tag. This tag was created originally by Leo Bancroft and I saw it on Brian of Bookish's channel, and I'll leave links to both the original video and Brian's video in the show notes down below. I've been meaning to get to this tag for quite a while, but a lot of the questions are rather interesting, and I had to take some time to really think about what my answers are. So let's get started. Question number 1. Tag some fabulous friends who also may want to do this tag and stand with trans kids. If you would like to do this tag, consider yourselves tagged, which is my usual tagging answer for these kind of questions. Question number 2. Tell us about some books on your TBR pile featuring trans non-binary characters or nonfiction about trans non-binary stuff. So for this, I have 2. The book I'm probably going to be reading this weekend is going to be 11 Inch by Michal Witowski, translated by W. Martin. This is a Polish gay novel in which one of the two main characters, I'm pretty sure, is a trans woman, and they basically go on an adventure in Eastern Europe and Central Europe during the waning days of the Cold War. Looking forward to it. I've been meaning to get to this book for a while, and I'll get to it this weekend. I'm also looking forward to reading more of Moriarty the Patriot. This is, of course, Sherlock Holmes pastiche created by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. Moriarty the Patriot is written by Ryosuke Takuchi with art by Hikaru Miyoshi. So Moriarty the Patriot is about James Moriarty, Sherlock Holmes' arch nemesis, who in this imagining of the series is a revolutionary who seeks to overthrow the deeply corrupt, deeply monstrous British Empire and British aristocracy. I loved this first volume, and I'm very much looking forward to future volumes, or collecting what's currently available and what's coming out in the future. Later in the story, one of the characters comes out as trans. Both the original character or the pre-transition character is a very famous character, and the character they transition to is equally, if not more famous. So, very interested to see how that develops. Question number 3. Recommend a favorite book, show, movie featuring a trans non-binary character. For this, I've got 4. 3 of which I have. Another one which I don't have, but I really want to re-add to my collection. So, of the 3 that I have, I'll show you Blackfish City by Sam J. Miller. This is a near-feature science fiction novel set on basically it's an oil rig city. And it's about a family coming together after decades of being apart, and of that family's revenge on some of the people who tore them apart. One of the main characters, one of the 4 point of view characters, is non-binary. I'd also like to recommend 2 books by Yoon Ha Lee, the second and third books in the Machineries of Empire series. First up is Raven Stratagem. This is the follow-up to Nine Fox Gambit, which is also incredible, although I don't think it has any trans or non-binary characters, but one of the main characters in Raven Stratagem is trans, and basically his job is to try to defeat the main protagonist from Nine Fox Gambit, who's up to something. And the sequel, Revenant Gun, or the final volume in the Machineries of Empire trilogy, sees everything coming together and does feature the trans main character from Raven's Stratagem in an important role, although he's not as central a protagonist as he was in Raven's Stratagem. That kind of goes to sort of a new version of a character that has been seen in the first two books. But it's also really good, although I would say Raven's Stratagem of the two is my favorite. Oh, and I'm forgetting the fourth one that I don't have in my collection. And that would be Tales of the City by Armistead Maupin. Tales of the City is a picaresque novel set in 1970s San Francisco about a young woman named Marianne Singleton who is new to the city, who finds a charming little apartment complex on Barbary Lane, whose landlady, Anna Madrigal, is a transgender woman. And Anna Madrigal features quite heavily in all of the subsequent Tales of the City books. There are quite a few. I read the first one ages ago and loved it, and I'm a huge fan of the miniseries adaptations that have come out over the last 30 or so years. Although I haven't seen the most recent one, but probably ought to do that at some point. Okay. Question number 4. Everyone has their own journey and no one demographic is a monolith. Write a book with a journey. How will you define that? So for this prompt, I'm going with Tsubasa Reservoir Chronicle by Clamp. Tsubasa Reservoir Chronicle is Clamp's big crossover manga series or adventure series. It's about a young archaeologist, Yoren, who is in love with the princess of the Cloud Kingdom, Sakura. One day during a dig, Sakura is grievously wounded by a magical attack, and her memories are scattered across various dimensions. In order to save Sakura, Yoren is sent to visit the space-time witch Yuko from Exholic in order to find a way to travel across dimensions. Joining him are a samurai, Kuragane, he's technically a ninja, but he's more of a samurai. I think of him as a samurai, even though he's a ninja. But Kuragane, who's from a version of Japan, and Fady Flowerite, a sorcerer fleeing his homeland, his home world. Together they are joined by Makona, and in order to basically use Makona, they have to sacrifice something. Yoren gives up his relationship with Sakura, Kuragane gives up his sword, and Faye gives up some tattoos that are heavily implied to regulate his magic. And so the trio plus Makona and also Sakura go around various realities searching for Sakura's feathers to sort of restore her memories. All the while they are being monitored and manipulated by an evil sorcerer named Fei Wong Reed, who has his own intentions for Sakura and her feathers. And it's a wonderful, moving, I really love this series and the journey. So question number 4. None of us knows everything, even about our own identities, especially since we're not a monolith and each have our own journey. What is a book that taught you something either about yourself or the world around you? So for this prompt or question, I'm going to go with Perdido Street Station by China Miéville. It is the first work of New Weird that I ever read. and it is about a rogue scientist in the city-state of New Crobuzon who is seeking to create a sort of a perpetual energy machine. While he's working on this project, he's approached by Yagoric, a Garuda who has he's a birdman whose wings have been amputated as part of a judicial punishment. Yagoric hires Isaac to restore his flight. And so initially Isaac looks to various flying animals to sort of understand flight, the mechanics of flight. And he gradually comes to understand that he really doesn't have the skill to really craft a new pair of wings for Yagoric. That perhaps the best way for Yagoric to get what he wants is for Isaac to continue with his original studies. So as Isaac transitions back to his original research to help Yagoric, he gets rid of all of the flying animals that he had collected. Unfortunately, one of those flying animals, he has in a pupa, a larval state, is in actuality a monster once it becomes a moth-like creature. And said moth-like creature escapes and rescues its fellows from captivity, part of a drug production enterprise by some of the criminal element of New Crobuzon, and they go on a rampage. And it's up to Isaac, Yagoric, and their friends to sort of put a stop to these monsters. When I first read Perdido Street Station, I was completely blown away. I had never read science fiction or fantasy like this. It is just so amazingly well written. Just the language, the imagery, the ambitiousness of this novel. It really completely changed my ideas of how you write fantasy, of what you can do with fantasy. So that's why I'm choosing a Perdido Street Station to answer this question. Question number 6. When things are hard in the world or in our lives, sometimes there are things we can do to help center and refocus ourselves. To bring joy, to keep us going, to keep living, resisting, being our authentically amazing selves. What are things you do to center yourself or find joy? Well, one thing I do is buy books, which is retail therapy, which has never really hurt anyone, done responsibly. I also like to make reading plans. I'll meet with, say, booktube events, sort of thinking up TBRs and sort of buying lists if I don't quite have the nice array of potential books to read for them. And also personal reading projects. I'm currently working on a few that I'm hoping to get to in the next few months, although it probably would involve quite a bit of work. And that also painting. I really enjoy painting with pastels. Some examples of my work. There are sticks of color that you can draw and paint with, and I'm a huge fan of them. And in fact, last Sunday I was not in the best frame of mind, and I took some time out from my reading and did some painting, which, if I remember, I'll take a picture of the painting I did and show you tomorrow during weekly reads when I talk about how crappy the first part of my reading was. So let me... Sorry about that. Hoping it was a telemarketer. But anyway, let's move on to question number 7. What's your walk-on music or your feel at home in your own body music? I'd say maybe the others by Miyavi, I would think. Lust by Tori Amos. Precious Things by Tori Amos. Scarecrow by Tori Amos. Ornament of Gold. Not Scarecrow by Susie and the Banshees. Also Carousel. Ornaments of Gold. There are quite a few songs that I would like to have as my entrance theme or walk on music. I have a wide array of music I love, so anyway. Question number 8. Finding mentors, people of wisdom, or heroes can be another way to help us navigate life. Who are some of your mentors? Can you share something they taught you or inspired you to learn more about? Unfortunately, I really don't have much I've never really had much in the way of mentors. I'm not the most approachable or approaching of people. And it's been so long since I had anyone that could even remotely be considered a mentor that I've well forgotten what lessons they ever taught me. And I haven't really maintained those relationships. So this question I'll pass on. Question number 9. Who are some out trans non-binary booktubers, Instagrammers, authors, actors, etc. who you'd like to shout out? Well, there's AJ Dunn here on BookTube. Also, Audrey of Perpetual Pages. There's also ContraPoints, who's a I guess you'd say she does commentary YouTube. And I think that's all I'll shout out for there. And finally, question number 10. What are some organizations you'd like to shout out for supporting trans kids, trans folks? I'm not as familiar. I haven't really kept up with the news. I know here in Texas, one of the bits of stupidity that our state government, and particularly our governor, has engaged with in the last few months has been an executive order directing the Child Protective Services, I'm blanking on what it's actually called, to consider or investigate child affirming care for trans kids as child abuse. I know a number of parents who are fortunately supportive of their trans kids have sued, and some rather successfully. But I'm not entirely sure if there are any organizations who have been supporting them. I do know here in Texas there's an umbrella LGBTQ plus organization called Equality Texas that I'm pretty sure has been involved in supporting trans kids and non-binary kids. So I'll shout them out. But anyway, BookTube, that was the Stand With Trans Kids tag. And again, if you would like to do this tag, consider yourselves tagged. And I will see you tomorrow with weekly reads and maybe another tag video. But definitely weekly reads. So until then, BookTube, thank you. Have a great afternoon and stay safe.